Many thanks for joining us once again. Well, lecturers in Nigeria's public universities have suspended their strike, which began 8 months ago. They were demanding better funding for universities, more facilities, and an improved pay system, among other issues. Several rounds of talks with the government had failed to resolve the dispute. Well, last month, a court ordered the lecturers to end the strike, but their union appealed against the decision. However, in the early hours of today, the union known as the Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASUU, announced the suspension of the strike. The conditions of the suspension are still not entirely clear, but the union has now asked its members to resume work from Monday next week.
Well, Arise analyst Dr. Sam Amadi joins us now to look at this latest development. Dr. Sam Amadi, good to have you on Newsnight.
Thank you.
This suspension, that's what ASUU says this strike, the status of the strike is. It's been suspended. Are we to believe that we will not find ourselves again down the line in the same place where ASUU makes these demands that have not, been met anyway?
Well, history should guide us. We had almost close to the same 6 months or thereabout in 2020. So now 2022, 2 years we've had 8 months. ASUU was very careful in the choice of words. This is a suspension. And also said that, look, they did it in deference to President Muhammad Buhari, in deference to House of Reps Speaker, who had tried to play some very important role, tried to steer to this conclusion. The real question here is whether there is some strategic thinking around overcoming the underlying crisis that is perennial in terms of basically how do you fund university education in Nigeria. Nigeria has the lowest enrollment and even completion rate in university education across African less developed economies and globally in terms of less developed economies. So, and if you look at per capita, our population, if you look at our strategic vision in terms of development, we need, interestingly, ASUU talks around against proliferation of universities, but actually you need more universities. So we need to get back to saying, or at least need more enrollment, bigger enrollment for the universities. So will government be able to pay the earned allowances, which is the immediate, hanging fruit for the workers who are getting back? After 8 months of not being paid, technically, these are pauperized. The economic status of these lecturers is very poor. Now it's going to be poorer. So it's not just opening, the morale has to be high. Government has to make great effort to meet them. We know that fiscal challenge, this country is going through a fiscal crisis of great proportion. And to be fair, it looks like where can we find the money? But if we show good faith, if we also cut down on other things we are doing, the crisis of fiscal crisis is not just about number, it's about culture, it's about how you behave. So ASUU themselves are patrons, the leaders. If they see really that everybody's pulling together, and as a real genuine effort to meet them somewhere, I think we can have probably a longer period to allow for very strategic and comprehensive review of our tertiary education policy, financing, and concept. Is university going to be a social service? Is it going to be a commercial service in which government subsidizes private sector, everybody comes in, and parents themselves also chip in there. There are parents who are owing $200,000 in students' debt, and government decided to wipe it off. So we should also think about what do we as parents also have to sacrifice to get our kids to university education. And the question is, what's the value of that education? Will they get the jobs and so on and so forth?
Critical points. I also hear you talk about trust in all of that. There's something interesting about today's date, 14th. I recall the strike began on the 14th of February, and then it's called off on the 14th.
Support for us.
Well, we are glad that we can now smile about this because the schools are resuming. But let me ask you about the legal aspect of this, and if you think that ASUU may also be still pursuing that end of it. You recall that the appeal court had said, go and resume first, and that's based on the industrial court's decision as well. So do you think they are resuming based on those decisions of the court to then further pursue their demands?
I think yes, partly, because if you look at the statement as well, and of course it will be it's a moral crisis for ASUU not to obey the Court of Appeal order. I mean, ASUU has taken the moral high ground. The government is seen as a reckless, irresponsible lot, okay, ASUU should obey that order.
Yeah.
It's the final order of the Court of Appeal. And so what they have done also is to obey the order, and then it helped that there's a political support from the speaker. So it's like, okay, ASUU, please go to, but essentially they have to obey the order. Now they're going to go back to, the negotiations continue. They've not wrapped up. We've not seen the details as if government is going to meet this demand. So they're going to continue pressing their demand. The fear is we don't want to have ASUU get back to work and then they pay the end allowance, and then surprisingly they come back to strike action. I think going forward, ASUU should probably think around non-strike measures. But the question is that our political economy is not responsive enough. So if ASUU says no strike, we're going to keep on demanding, keep on doing some protests with a system respond. A system that failed to respond to schools closed for 8 years. Is it a system that can respond to
8 months?
8 months.
8 months, sorry. 8 months.
May we never see the time when it
Exactly.
closed for 8 years.
Is it a system that can respond to non-violent, quote-unquote, measures like pleas, protests, signals, and all that? So I think the problem is that ASUU leaders see government irresponsibility and own responsiveness as leaving them with no option than to take what is obviously a condemnable, dangerous, devastating, action. But if you look at ASUU's point of view, we've not seen enough sensitivity from government. So we hope that ASUU continues and pursues their demand, but probably never resorts to this level of destruction.
Okay. All right, we have just 30 seconds. Long-term damage to tertiary education in Nigeria following this long strike. Any winners, any losers?
We are all losers. First, look, apart from low enrollment and low completion, Nigeria also has the poorest quality of teacher education in comparable low developing economies in Africa and elsewhere. If you look at the global rating of the biggest UNILAG that got was about 400 to 500 of the. If you go to Africa, Nigeria doesn't meet the first 20. You get South African, University of Cape Town, WITS and all that. Yeah. So basically, these actions have, Nigeria has already damaged, quality of education is damaging Nigeria. It's getting worse. At the point will come where Nigerian, human capital, we're boasting about being a youthful economy, that should be able to give us the human capital age for development. Yeah. But we'll come a point where Nigerian human capital will be very degraded, that internationally probably will find it difficult to get the kind of job.
Very quickly, Dr. Sam Amadi, before we let you go, you did decline your appointment by the People's Democratic Party Presidential Campaign Council. Why? Very briefly.
Well, simply because I want to have the capacity to have a clear voice, impartial voice, nothing to do against the ticket. I think it's a credible, strong leader, but I guess I should be able to say the truth. Nigeria needs people who can say the truth without any partisan bias.
You say politicians don't say the truth.
Yeah, I'm a politician, so that's why I want to say the truth.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sam Amadi, Arise News analyst. Great to have you back.
Yes,
Thank
as
you so
Arise News analyst. All right, moving on Newsnight.